of regional proxies: the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and Hamas in Gaza. For decades, Tehran has armed them, funded them, and trained them, and they gave Iran a deterrent.
And the country says a new barrage of Iranian missiles are on their way.
But there is still some strategic advantage.
In a statement, the Israeli
Take
Prime
the
Minister
Houthis, for example. They say they will resume attacks on ships in the Red Sea. The Houthis will start attacking ships in the Red Sea. Basically, they're joining Iran's campaign.
Dubai, there's a plume of smoke.
So Iran can defend itself. It has the numbers, it has the missiles, it has the drones, it has the proxies.
Live from London, I'm Christian Fraser. We'll be bringing you all the analysis of this huge military operation with Mikey Kay, the security brief.
Years of sanctions have bled the country.
And we'll be answering your questions as this unprecedented event unfolds across the region.
But a few years later, in 2018, the United States walked out of the deal. That's when Iran's currency, the rial, collapsed. Inflation spiraled and purchasing power evaporated. Today, the currency has lost more than 95% of its value since 2018.
You're with BBC News, coming to you live from Tel Aviv in Israel. We're bringing you live coverage of our breaking news this hour as America and Israel launch airstrikes across Iran. And you can hear what's been going on throughout the day. Air raid sirens going off around our position here in Tel Aviv, suggesting incoming perhaps drone or missile fire from Iran. Usually at this stage we'd be running down towards the shelter down in the basement, but we have a flight jackets on and we'll wait for further instructions. But Benjamin Netanyahu has been talking about the need to remove an existential threat from his country.
This pressure multiplied. If oil exports are disrupted, if more sanctions follow, if the rial slides further,
Israel have
will
launched
ordinary
what he
Iranians
called
tolerate,
major combat operations, saying the objective was to defend the American people by eliminating what he says are imminent threats from Iran
but prolonged escalation
and from the Iranian regime. The retaliation, though, has already started from Iran. Bahrain says the US base there has come under attack. Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq and Saudi Arabia have all had missiles fired into their countries.
Well, the air raid sirens, they're still sounding, you can hear them, and there have been explosions across numerous Israeli cities. The defense minister here, Israel Katz, has declared a special and permanent state of emergency. The country's airspace has been closed and all schools are shut down. Israeli defense forces say dozens of missiles are being fired into the country. 7,000 reservists have been called out.
Emirates, British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa.
Now, Israeli officials say Iran's supreme leader Khamenei and the Iranian president have been targeted. 7 missiles have hit the presidential palace, and there have been strikes around the supreme leader's compound as well, we're hearing. The attack follows, of course, weeks of tension in the region, with US forces massing around Iran in recent days and weeks. A huge military presence gathered in the Gulf there. We will be live with our correspondents in the region in just a moment.
This is what war looks like
Joe
from
Inwood
35,000 feet.
On the developments so far.
When the rockets flew over Iran, civilian aircraft scattered.
After weeks of build-up,
flights peeled away from Iranian airspace
the US and
quickly.
Israel left no room for doubt.
As the conflict spread across the region, dozens of planes were left circling
still emerging amidst an
because the countries below them were shutting their airspace one by one.
Out right across the country.
One flight tells the story better than any map. An Air India flight from New Delhi to Tel Aviv was flying over Saudi airspace when the war began.
From threatening America
Left with no options, the plane had to turn back and head to Mumbai.
We are going to destroy their missiles.
This is not just one
their
flight.
Missile industry to the ground.
At airports across the region,
totally
the panic
again
is visible.
Obliterated.
The list of airlines cancelling flights in West Asia reads like a roll call of global aviation.
Of any list.
Emirates,
attempt to blunt their ability
Qatar
to
Airways,
respond.
Air France,
Iran's Navy,
British Airways, Lufthansa, Virgin Atlantic,
soft target.
and more.
The key
Every single one of them has either cancelled flights outright or suspended operations across the region indefinitely.
Iran promised to respond with crushing force.
Even top Indian carriers like Air India and Indigo have suspended all of their flights to West Asia.
the country's
It's a
Iron
big
Dome
blow
missile
for the aviation
defences already
sector
in
at
action.
large,
The Prime
because
Minister warned his
cities
people
like
there would be a
Dubai,
price to pay.
Doha and Abu Dhabi, they act like corridors of
Every military
international
action
travel.
involves risk. But
West
the risk
Asia
of doing nothing
is not
is
just a
greater.
conflict zone,
Because if
it
we
is
do
the
not
engine
act, we will
room
get a
of
nuclear
global
Iran,
aviation.
an Iran with tens of thousands of ballistic missiles.
3 of the world's largest international airlines are based right here.
Some of those
Emirates
ballistic
in Dubai,
missiles have already been
Qatar
fired in
Airways in
response.
Doha,
The US has a
Etihad
vast
in
military
Abu
footprint
Dhabi.
across the Middle East,
All of them are now impacted.
and already impacts have been seen
It's
at
an
the
ordeal
US
for the
naval
hundreds
base in
of passengers
Bahrain,
who now find
headquarters of the
themselves
5th Fleet.
stranded at
Qatar
airports.
hosts the Al Udeid air
Even
base.
if the airlines
The last time
resume
Iran struck,
flights.
it was telegraphed in advance and largely
Experts say
performative.
it could
Not
be
this
days
time.
or even
There have also
weeks
been reports of
before
drones being
stranded
intercepted
passengers
over Iraq.
can reach their destinations.
Knowing exactly what is happening inside Iran is
simply
difficult at
is
this
not a
point
good time
with most
to take a
communications
flight.
down. But state
The
TV
message from
broadcast
governments
this
around the
statement.
world is now blunt and consistent.
According to the information
Do not
obtained
travel.
from these two corrupt
Multiple
regimes, their
countries
operations
have
in
issued
Tehran and
formal
other cities will
advisories.
continue.
They have warned
Therefore,
their
as much as
citizens
possible,
to
while
stay away
maintaining
from Iran.
calm, travel to other
For those
cities to
already
stay
living across
safe from
West
the
Asia,
evils of these
the
two
guidance
regimes.
goes further. Citizens have been asked
In
to
January,
limit
when
their
widespread
movement,
street protests gripped the
stay
country,
indoors,
President Trump promised
and
help
be
was on
ready
its way
to take
before
shelter.
taking no immediate action.
These are not
In
routine
today's
travel
speech,
warnings.
he said that help had finally arrived.
When we are
Governments issue
finished, take
advisories
over your
like these
government. It will
when they
be
believe the
yours
risk
to
is
take.
real
This
and
will be
immediate.
probably your only
India's
chance
Ministry
for
of External
generations.
Affairs has now
For
issued
many years, you have
advisories,
asked for America's
country by
help,
country.
but you
For
never
Indians
got
in
it.
Iran,
No
the
president
message
was
is
willing to do what
unambiguous.
I am willing to
Leave
do
now.
tonight.
By any
Now you
means
have a
available.
president who is
In
giving you
Israel,
what you want.
Indians have been
So
told
let's see how
to
you
exercise
respond.
the utmost caution.
Iran now
Stay
faces the
close to
biggest military
designated
build-up in the
shelters
Middle East for
and
more than
avoid
20
all
years,
non-essential
and
travel
the US
within the
administration, which
country.
has explicitly
Across the
called
Gulf,
for its
the
destruction.
UAE,
It seems
Saudi
likely this
Arabia,
conflict will
Jordan.
escalate in
The
dangerous
advisory
and unpredictable
is
ways.
to avoid
Joe Inwood,
unnecessary
BBC
travel.
News.
Follow local authorities and stay alert.
I should tell you that
So,
in the last
what do
few
these wave of
seconds,
disruptions
the night
mean
sky
for
above us
you?
here of Tel Aviv
If you have a flight
completely
booked
lit up
to or through West Asia,
with
check
the
its status before you leave your
anti-missile
home.
systems
Do
that
not assume
Israel
it
has
is operating.
lighting up the night sky. We saw a few
If you are
explosions as
already
well,
stranded in one of
I
the
think you
affected
may have
countries,
just caught the sound
contact
of
your
a
nearest
huge, great
embassy
bang
immediately.
just then. That
Register
would
your
be the
presence
Iron Dome systems
and
trying
ask
to
about
intercept the
evacuation
drones and any
options.
missiles
If your
that might
flight
be
has been
fired
cancelled,
over from the
ask your
Iranians. This has
airline
been going on
about rebooking on
throughout
routes
the
that
day
avoid the
with
conflict
air raid
zone
sirens going
entirely.
off periodically. And
You may
things
also be
seem to have
entitled to compensation
quietened down
to
a
cover
little bit now.
accommodation and
But
meals
just over the
for the
last
duration of the
few
delay.
minutes and
Keep
seconds,
every
the
receipt.
whole of the night
You
sky
may
here
need it
lit
when
up
you file a claim.
with that anti-drone and missile
Times are
battery
uncertain.
dealing
And your
with
best bet
any
is to be cautious.
Iranian response coming in at this hour. Well, we do have correspondents in
Right
Palm
now,
Beach,
this is
Florida,
not just a regional
Jerusalem,
flare-up, it's a moment
Doha,
that could
and
redraw
Washington,
fault
keeping an
lines
eye on
across
what's going
West
on.
Asia
First, we're going to
and
talk to
beyond.
Bent
From the United
de
Nations to
Boosman,
Moscow,
who's with
from
President
Brussels to
Trump's
New
press
Delhi.
pool
The
in
reactions
Palm
are
Beach,
pouring in.
Florida.
Some
We've
call it
got
aggression,
Hugo
others
Pachega
call it
in Jerusalem
consequence, but
and
everyone
Barbara
agrees on
Platt,
one thing:
who
the
will
stakes
Usher,
have
who's
never
in the
been
Qatari
higher.
capital of
The United
Doha.
Nations Security
Let's go to
Council has
Bent
called for an
first.
emergency
Just bring
meeting,
us up to
which means
date.
diplomats will gather in a
With
room,
what, the White
deliver
House
strongly
and the
worded
President is saying
speeches,
now.
express deep concern, call for maximum
Well, we
restraint,
haven't actually heard
and
from the
then
president
adjourn
since his
for
early
coffee.
morning address announcing the
It won't
beginning
change
of major
anything,
military
but our next
operations
report
in
takes a
Iran.
look
It was
at the
about
global
2:30
reactions.
This morning, we do know
Right
that
now,
at
the
the
question
moment,
isn't
there are no
who
specific
started it,
plans for any
but
sort of press
who
event
can
or any
stop it.
further
As
address.
America,
We've been pressing
Israel,
the
and
White House
Iran
to
trade
be able to
fire,
hear from
the
President
entire
Trump.
world is holding
Questions
its
to him,
breath,
But as of now, it's been rather quiet here.
especially the United
We do know that he's
Nations.
monitoring the
The UN's human rights chief, Volker Turk, did not mince words. He condemned both the U.S.-Israel strikes and Iran's retaliation. His message was simple: more attacks will only bring death, destruction, and human misery. Then came Russia. It has condemned the strikes as a pre-planned and unprovoked act of armed aggression. Moscow accused Washington and Tel Aviv of pushing the region toward what it called a possible radiological catastrophe. On the other side, Ukraine blamed Iran. Kiev argued that Tehran's own violent actions domestically and internationally triggered the response.
Although Ukrainians never threatened Iran, but the Iranian regime chose to be Putin's accomplice and supplied him with Shahed drones. And not only with the drones themselves, but also with the technology. Iran also provided Russia with other weapons.
Two completely different narratives. One sees aggression, the other sees consequence. And that's the global divide in a nutshell. Across Europe, the tone was anxious. The European Union called the situation perilous. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen stressed one thing above all: nuclear safety. France's President Emmanuel Macron went even further. He warned the conflict could have grave consequences for international peace and security. He also called for an urgent UN Security Council meeting. Even the African Union stepped in, calling for immediate de-escalation. But why is Africa worried? It's because a war in West Asia doesn't stay in West Asia. Oil prices spike, food prices rise, shipping routes get disrupted, and it is already happening. Reports suggest some oil companies have suspended fuel shipments in Strait of Hormuz. The strait is the world's most important oil choke point. 20% of the world's oil passes through it. India says it is deeply concerned about the latest developments in Iran and the Gulf. New Delhi's message is clear: restraint, not retaliation. The government has urged all sides to avoid escalation and prioritize civilian safety. It has called for dialogue and diplomacy to cool tensions, while stressing that sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected. But India isn't just issuing statements. Indian missions across the region are in touch with Indian nationals. Advisories have been issued, asking citizens to remain vigilant, stay connected with embassies, and strictly follow local security guidance. This is important because it directly affects millions of Indians living and working in the Gulf. But not everyone focused on de-escalation. Norway's foreign minister argued Israel broke international law. Under international rules, a preemptive strike is justified only if there is an imminent threat. Norway is basically asking, was there one?
Strikes or missile attacks.
But amid all the reactions, there is a very different voice doing the rounds. Reza Pahlavi, son of Iran's last Shah, said, "Final victory is near," and urged Iranians to rebuild the country. That's regime change language. So while governments are calling for restraint, opposition figures are seeing an opportunity here. And that adds another layer to the crisis: internal instability. So the world is asking for restraint, but restraint only works if all sides choose it. Right now, West Asia is a tinderbox. One strike led to retaliation. Retaliation is leading to more escalation. And this could spiral into a global crisis and a wider regional conflict.
A luxury hotel there, the Fairmont Palm, is on fire, apparently also because of shrapnel from...
So what does this war mean for the world? We can split the impact into four categories. The first is obviously the energy risk. West Asia is home to the largest oil producers in the world. You've got Saudi Arabia, you've got the UAE and Qatar. These countries keep our energy market stable. Put together, they make up 30% of diplomacy beforehand,
trying to mediate between Iran and the United States to prevent this kind of conflict, because there's a great deal of fear that the war could spill over the borders and destabilize
oil facilities or refineries. They are now dealing with if that happens, oil supplies will be hampered, meaning oil prices will surge. They've already jumped by around 5% today. More attacks could drive them up further. Some experts say by nearly 20%. Oil prices could go up by 20%. That's the expectation.
They will be making that calculation very carefully because their goal, I think, will be to try to prevent conflict or instability in the region.
This waterway carries around 20%.
Barbara, thank you for that. Barbara Plett-Usher there reporting for us. We're going to talk now to Kasia Junaidi from the BBC Persian Service, who's in Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us. We know what America is thinking. Are you getting any sense of what ordinary Iranians, how they're coping with all of this at the moment?
This is at risk.
Well, it's very difficult now to hear from people back home in Iran because of the situation and because of the problems of internet connectivity. But I've heard from some connections inside Tehran that some people have left the capital. The road from Tehran to the northern provinces on the Caspian coast, where usually people would travel, is very busy with traffic. Many people are apparently leaving Tehran for those cities. There were pictures on social media, films on social video films on social media showing some people on streets in Tehran being joyous and even dancing. I have to say that parts of the opposition, many of those people who went on the streets in January in opposition to the regime, they were expecting this attack since President Trump had warned the Iranian regime about crushing the protests. So some people are showing their joy from these attacks. At the same time, there were reports last night about long queues, people forming long queues in front of petrol stations in anticipation of an imminent attack. Of course, they were waiting for this attack for a while, and some people were showing frustration and exhaustion with waiting to see how the situation evolves. So, in Tehran and major cities around the country, people were expecting this to happen. People were getting ready by buying like food and storing food and water in order, if that something happens, they could have at least some basic needs. Also, the Iranian TV has been reporting widely on the attacks, especially on an alleged attack